Metropolitan Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session for its regularly scheduled meeting of March 21st, 2013. I'm Joey Hargis, and I'll be presenting the cases for review in today's public hearing. The procedure will be to introduce the case record as the Codes Department has it by means of a PowerPoint presentation on this main screen here. We'll also present any letters that we've received in support or opposition to a case, as well as any correspondence from other government agencies. At the conclusion of our presentation, the applicant will come forth and present their case to the board along with any persons in support. And then if there's opposition to a case, the board will hear from those parties opposed. After the opposition has presented their testimony, the applicant will have a period for rebuttal. The board in their rules provides applicants in cases without opposition 10 minutes to present their testimony. To the right of where you will be seated is a clock there on the mantle, hearth, whatever that is, wall. That'll have your time you have remaining to testify. In cases with opposition, both sides of a case will have 15 minutes to present their testimony. Should the applicant wish a rebuttal, they should reserve some of their allotted 15 minutes. All section numbers that we refer to today come directly from the Metropolitan Zoning Code, which was adopted by the Metro Council and became effective January 1st, 1998. I'll introduce and make a part of the record the Zoning Code. It's here at my desk, and I'll dispense from reading any individual sections unless the applicant or opposition requests that I read those sections. Zoning Code requires that these proceedings be taped. Therefore, it's imperative anyone wishing to address this board to please come forward to the table. Press the speak button on the microphone. You'll notice the ring will become red like my microphone is, and present your testimony. The board will go through all cases set for public hearing today, and after each case, the board will discuss and then vote on that case. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases before us as outlined in Section 1740-180 of the Metro Code. The code requires that 4 members of this 7-member board be present to constitute a quorum. The code also requires that you have 4 affirmative votes. We have only 4 members present today, so you need a unanimous decision in your favor. Should you not get that, what occurs is your case will be automatically rescheduled for the next available public hearing. Okay, that public hearing will be the first hearing. The date escapes me, the first Thursday of May. That's where we are in our cycle of notification. So about 45 days from now, if that were to occur. I'll skip the 5 or more members because I'll only have 4 members present today. Let's see. An appellant or any aggrieved property owner may request a rehearing of today's hearing within 60 days of this public hearing. Further, any applicant or aggrieved property owner may appeal this board's decision to Chancery or Circuit Court within the same 60-day period. After that 60 days has lapsed, the board decision is final and no further action may be taken. If you're an applicant and your case is granted, it is necessary for you to come and obtain the permit for which you've applied. It should be noted you have 2 years to obtain such a permit for this board's approval to remain valid. I submit that all cases were filed in proper order, Mr. Chairman. All appellants were notified by certified mail as required by the code, and a legal ad was published in the Tennessean. But before I begin preliminary announcements, the board does allow elected officials to address you guys, and I see Councilman Buddy Baker's with us today. Councilman, you're going to wait till your case. Okay. All right. And
And Joey, thank you for giving us the newly updated version of the zoning code. It's been a few years since I've read this thing cover to cover. I think it's always good for us to read this. I'm sure John Michael does that every month, right?
Every night when I go to bed. Yeah.
But it can also be found online. But no, thank you, Joey. This is very helpful.
I would recommend to the members of the public, you guys as well, the online version is the most current version always. The codifiers take all our amendments over time and incorporate them into a written document, but every time the council meets, it's subject to change. So to keep up with the latest one, you want to be sure to consult the online.
And according to this, it's municode.com/resources. You can find this.
Great site. We have a link on our website as well. Okay, well, the board has a consent agenda. Prior to the meeting, a board member reviews the record in each case, and if in their opinion the applicant meets the criteria for the application they've requested, and they feel that testimony in the case would not alter the material facts, they recommend the case to the remainder of the board for approval. I'll now enter into the record those cases that have been recommended by Ms. Mercedes Jones to the board, and if there's anyone here in opposition to a case, if you'll raise your hand, the case will be removed from consent and heard in its regular order. The first case, actually preliminary announcement, excuse me, first. The case on page 1, I&G Elston Incorporated at 2110 Elston Place. That case has been deferred to our April 18th meeting. Board members, I will caution you, we have about 12 cases on that agenda. We haven't had that in probably 2 years, 2.5 years, so there are signs of economic recovery. That's one of the signs that we see in our office, so it will be a long meeting. This case will be heard on that agenda as well.
Just a few people have written nationwide that Nashville's a hot city, so
yes,
I guess the zoning is catching up too as well.
Okay, back to our consent agenda. The first case recommended for the consent agenda is case 2013-28, Mr. Robert Maddox, 2824 Lumar Lane, requesting variance in the street setbacks in RS-20 to construct a new front porch. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 28? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, the irregular shaped lot necessitated a need for variance in this case. The situation here is you have an adjoining house that is skewing the average lot setback there. The neighboring house sits greatly back from others, and it sort of skews this gentleman's average. That having been said, Ms. Jones recommends that case for the consent agenda. The next case recommended for the consent agenda is case 2013-30, Mr. Michael Schmerling and company, the appellant owner of the property of 1814 Church Street, requesting a variance in perimeter landscaping to construct a new parking lot. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 30? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, the exceptional narrowness of the lot necessitates a need for variance in this case. The urban forester, although not present today, has passed along to me. He is good with the plan. This lot actually sits on Church Street between 18th and 19th Avenues. Is a completely covered concrete surface, takes up the entire lot. This plan will actually green the property up significantly, and they will be planting the trees required of them. And then finally, a request for consent, case 2013-22. This is a deferred item from our last hearing. The applicant present, Mr. Diaz, just for a moment, there was a neighborhood meeting that occurred at your request. We deferred the case from last meeting. You all met with the neighbors. We received an email from the councilman summarizing a list of conditions on that. Are you agreeable to each of those conditions? Yes. That's placed there. The applicant has affirmed he's agreeable to the conditions worked out between he and the neighbors that deal with this lot. It's some of the things typically this board does not deal with condition-wise, but you do have the ability to adopt those conditions. The councilman
and put it on the consent agenda.
Yes,
is that what you're saying?
And request that you do so, subject to that.
Well, I think as long as the record reflects that they've agreed to it and the council person has, yes,
and the record will reflect that.
Yeah, we need to make sure. Are you going to put those conditions as a part of the order? Okay.
I'll attach it to the order, and they'll become.
And which council person was that?
Councilman Peter Westerholm.
Okay, wonderful, great.
Those are the three cases recommended for consent today. We have a motion by Ms. Jones.
I'll second.
Mr. Rocker.
All right, you've heard the motion for approval of consent agenda. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Ayes carried. So
You're here for cases 28, 30, and 22 on page 3. Your cases have been approved. 22 noted with conditions as stipulated in the neighborhood meeting. And we will hear our first case. Our first case today is case 2013-29. Mr. Jeffrey Kinman, are you present, sir? All right. As Mr. Kinman comes forward, I will show to the board the process. I'll kind of show them photographs and go through why you were here, and then I'll turn it over to you all. You're welcome to stay with us. The subject property you see here is on Copeland Drive, located in the RS20 zone district. The variance sought here are two. One is the side setback for this zone district. Is RS20 is a 10-foot minimum side setback. The applicant is requesting a 5-foot setback. And then the height restrictions in RS20, based on the size of this lot, restricts a detached structure to 16 feet to the maximum height. They're proposing 23 feet and 1 inch on that structure there. This is looking at the subject property on my visit. This is from Copeland Drive facing the front of the house, and then the adjoining residences on either side. And I apologize, I don't have the best shot of the exact location of this structure, but it will be, this is the driveway that's shown on the site plan here. I believe the structure that's there now, is that will be removed, is that correct?
Yes, as a part of the project. Actually, that sits 3 feet from the property line, so we'll actually be removing that and sliding it away from our neighbor's property to 5 feet.
And then that structure, as you saw in the site plan, again, I don't have any shot of that rear yard area, but the structure this size, detached buildings over 700 square feet in area, this one's proposed at 1478, is required to, let me back up. Structures under 700 square feet are allowed to have a 3-foot setback, as the gentleman discussed earlier. Structures over 700 square feet have to meet the full setback for the zone district. So in this case would be 10 feet. They're requesting 5. And then again, the overall height of the structure. I'll pass around to you the elevations submitted. I apologize that our scanner didn't pick that up very well on the scan, so I'll let you see the hard copies. It will probably show the height.
I have some hard copies if,
oh, do you? Okay.
If somebody if you would like some.
John, what's the square footage on the proposed?
1,478. I'm going to leave that picture up. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys. If you have some, I'll pass them around if you'd like me to do that.
There's some 11 by 17s, if that's convenient. There's 5 of those there.
There, Mr. Harper, there's an aerial of the neighborhood. Okay, sir, with that, I'll turn it over to you, and if you would, please identify yourself and make your presentation to the board.
Yes, my name is Jeff Kinman. My wife and I, Angie, and my 3 children, we live in this home, and our desire is to remove the old and kind of dilapidated garage storage area that we have now, and do a couple of things. It's it had a lot of water damage. The elevation on the backside of that building went above the structure, and so it's got a lot of wood rot on the backside that we want to replace and make it a little more functional and watertight. And then we want to add a kind of a workout room, exercise room above it that serves as, a getaway place. Our home, the oldest of my 3 children, whose name is Callie Tucker Kinman, is a special needs daughter, and she is profoundly mentally and physically impaired, has a lot of requirements, and so a significant portion of our home proper is occupied by her room as well as therapy area, and so there's really just not a place to kind of get away from that other than just the bedrooms and the living space, which is all kind of handicap accessible inside and that sort of thing. And so our solution was to kind of create this space that would allow my wife, when you can't get away, she requires 24/7 kind of attention, and it's kind of give you a way to kind of get away and exercise, but not have to necessarily leave the house. She does sit in her room and can enjoy music and watch videos and those sorts of things, but has limitations and has to have someone around all the time. And so also, as you look at the elevation, you'll see a covered space, which also give us a way to get her in and out of the home, out of the elements. The center portion of that trellis work has a cover over it that would be waterproof, and that's really kind of the direction that we're going. The lower section is kind of really, we anticipate this being kind of a two-phased process, is to maybe have a porch or a patio that faces our backyard, and ultimately maybe do a pool in the back corner of the property. This would kind of, financially would be something we'd definitely do in stages. But one of the things that our daughter loves is getting in the water, and a hot tub or something along those lines with jets and everything is one of the few things that she really enjoys. And so that's kind of the direction that we are looking towards, moving towards over the next few years.
Okay, anything further to add?
Well, I will say that we have a couple of neighbors 2 doors down, Mary Fallon and Chris Simonson, recently remodeled their home, and they have a detached garage that is in the 22 to 25 foot height range that's been done within the last 2 years. Behind me, Joelle and Rick Speed have a garage that's in the 20 foot range. There's a new construction on Dorcas where they have a detached garage with functional space above it, and it looks like it's more like 27 feet tall. The community that neighborhood is in transition, where a lot of 1,700 square foot ranches have been taken down, and now we see a significant number of 2-story homes, so that it doesn't, the height no longer would sit and be dominating to a lower scale ranch that used to be in that neighborhood. And then additionally, I have a letter. I think they said they emailed one, but I have a letter from the neighbors to my right, to the driveway side, upon whose property it would reside, adjacent to Kim and Tillman Payne. And he provided a nice letter indicating he has no problems with it, as well as the people directly behind it. So I don't know if I want to share those.
Actually have those. I was going to mention that after your testimony, but thank you for...
and everyone I've spoken to in the neighborhood is fully supportive of the remodel plan.
Okay, panel, any questions? And the nature of the hardship is the topography, slope of the lot?
Yes, on the backside, it builds up significantly, and so it runs down into, water runs down into the living space, or the functional space now. So getting it elevated, it will help deal with it. It's about, from the front to the back of it, there's about a 3.5 foot elevation change in soil. That has caused really the dilapidation of the existing one.
You also have a tree.
And then we have if you look at that picture from the front, there's that large tree to the left there. And yes, that's a big tree that's in the way, and it's causing a problem and doesn't allow us to move further.
Why would you want to remove that tree? It's a beautiful tree.
Exactly. It's a big, gorgeous tree. Yeah, as you can see, we've got a plethora of the trees. That cottonwood on the left there is annually showers our neighborhood with cotton. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but all of a sudden, for about a week, everything's white from that.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll move to close the public hearing. George?
Public hearing on case 29.
I'll call for discussion.
I think, as the applicant has mentioned, this neighborhood has a lot of these structures, including one that he mentioned, I think came in front of us maybe last year that we approved. Is that correct, Joey?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not only that, he's got the support of his neighbors, which I think pretty much sums it up.
And particularly the immediate neighbor who's being most impacted by it.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Sure. I move to grant the variance based on the hardship of the topography as well as the tree, to give him a 5-foot variance to complete the project. Oh, and the height. Variance in the height. Joey, you dropped off in front of me, so I didn't make sure I give you both of them.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So passed.
All right,
Thank
you're
you.
approved, sir.
Good.
And I failed to mention before the meeting to the applicants that left, but I'll mention to you since you're with us. Your permit will be ready on Monday morning. Should you ready? Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the final case today is case 2013-31. Mr. Terry Woodall is present along with Councilman Buddy Baker in support for a request at 5200 Indiana Avenue. Requesting item D, this is in addition to a non-conforming use in the R6 district to add a second floor to the existing non-conforming rear yard residence. Referred to the board under section 1740-180. The applicant has alleged the board would have jurisdiction under section 1740-180 as well. Gentlemen, if you'll come forward. These two gentlemen, besides the applicant who was just before, so the only people in this auditorium besides ourselves, so there is no opposition present. You have received a letter in opposition. A copy was provided to you guys prior, but let me recap a little bit the story that's here. This property is R6, does permit a duplex use, essentially two residences on a single lot. Unique situation on this one, there are two actual structures in a duplex form. Most of you see in this neighborhood are two units in one structure. The gentleman before you here came before this board in 2009 and received approval for the exact same request that's before you today. He did obtain his permit and met the 2-year condition. The failure there, we didn't have any work complete on it, so his permit expired. He came to see us about renewing it. I informed him, unfortunately, you'll have to come back and ask. The request is identical in all respects to the 2009 case. Timeline-wise, and Mr. Woodall can explain more of what's occurred, but the front residence, which you see on this aerial photograph, burned in 2011. Is that right? Okay. And he came to this board to seek approval to reconstruct that, and that is he's still within his window to complete that before you. So he's seeking to essentially reestablish the approval he had already achieved on the back structure. This is looking at the subject lot. The original front home sat just on the other side of this tree here, and that's the structure there at the rear. This is at the back of the property, the front of this house, looking from 42nd, I believe.
52nd.
52nd, I apologize, yeah. 52nd. Mr. Woodall did secure the building, as you see, as we requested upon it, the property standards folks. I think you probably did that before we ever came out there.
Yes.
But these are the adjoining residences on Indiana and at 52nd. And then the structure itself, shown in the upper right, meter on the structure. Our records indicate clearly there's a second residence here and has been done so. But the councilman's here in support. We did receive one letter in opposition. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Okay, what really started this thing was we were going to add a second. The front house was fine. We're going to add a second story to the rear house. Well, during the process, so right after came before you guys and right after we had this approved, the flood hit. So I had 7 houses that I lost within less than a mile of there. So I rebuilt 11 houses total during the flood. I didn't have time to deal with this. During that time, the front house burned down. I didn't burn it down. Some arsonists burned it down. So we came back before you because what that did, when that one burned down, it made it non-conforming again. So we had to ask to be conforming again. So y'all approved it. You guys approved that. So now, in the meantime, that permit expired on the rear house. So we've got a permit issued for the front house. We got a permit issued. We have a permit issued for the rear house, but it has expired, to add a second story, to make it nice, to move on. But we've had some opposition that here in the last 2 weeks. I've been approached numerous times by somebody who wants to buy this and put 15-foot wide houses on it. They think they can put 4 or 5 on there. So I've turned everybody down. So now, from what I'm gathering, they've had a neighborhood meeting and they're complaining now. So I'm basically just here before you guys to go ahead and get this. I mean, I applied for this, a month ago or a month and a half ago, but didn't hear anything about it until this past week. I had a lot of offers, people coming to me wanting to build these 15-foot wide houses, wanted to buy me out, but I'm not interested. So that's why I'm back here.
I'll ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
Number one, are you in a position now with time and financial wherewithal to do the construction on
Yes,
the house?
I'm financially okay now.
Okay. And second, you said there was a neighborhood meeting. Were you invited to that meeting?
No.
I was at the meeting.
Okay.
The meeting went, when they brought Mr. Woodall's property up, it was one gentleman there that I think he's one that's wanting to buy Mr. Woodall's property. He was pretty much wanting to say he was a slumlord, and I spoke up in Mr. Woodall's behalf. I said, Mr. Woodall's not a slumlord. I said, he's got some nice rental properties around here. He takes care of it. And they said, well, we don't want a brick-o-block house, and it just don't look good. I've talked to Mr. Woodall. It's not going to be a brick-o-block. It's going to be stucco.
That was my next question.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm here in full support of what Mr. Woodall is trying to do.
Okay.
Councilman, we know you, but for the record, would you introduce yourself, please?
Councilman Buddy Baker, 20th District.
Thank you, sir. So the opposition didn't come today, and they had an opportunity. I guess the signs are up. Is there any idea why no opposition showed up today?
No, sir.
Anything further to add? Questions, council, panel?
I just have a clarification from our legal counsel. Item D, we're just to consider the appropriateness of the proposed structure. No hardship, no other conditions.
Okay, no further questions?
We'll close public hearing on case 31. Thank you.
Well, I think this is a pretty simple case. Many Nashvillians were devastated by the flood, and here's one of them. But just like strong Nashvillians have done for decades and centuries, you rebuilt, and you want to rebuild here, and we commend you for that. And we also commend you from working with your councilperson and making this happen. To me, if a building gets burned and, that was the previous use, this is pretty easy to do. So, like I said, he's done a great job, and thank you for building back all those houses.
Well, and I think it's very telling that the previous order was unanimously approved and that was on the original property. So I think he's been through several issues, and economic hardship has been experienced by a lot of people in the city. So again, commend you for trying to make these things right. Gives you an opportunity to do, are you going to build both the first and second house at the same time?
Both.
So you've got a little economy of scale, which is a great opportunity. Okay.
And I have multiple properties in this, within a mile of this area, and anybody's welcome to go look at any of them. Anybody's been
I'll
by
take
there
your councilman's
several
word.
times. Yes.
I think he represents the constituents well.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you entertain a motion?
I move that we approve this variance, finding that there's no increase in the nonconformity of the existing property.
So second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So passed.
You adopt unanimously.
Thank you.
Good luck, sir.
With that, the Board of Zoning Appeals is adjourned for today. Thank you.